So I'm going to introduce Dan, and Dan's going to introduce our panel. Interactive. So we've got some questions. We want you guys to ask some questions. In case you take off, I'm going to remind you the dinner is at Fido's tonight. Check your email. It has all the details. And it starts at 6:30. But, take your time. If you need some downtime in between and you don't show up till 7, that's okay. The bar opens at 6:30. That's probably the important part. If you're there at 6:15, the bar will be open. Okay, so if you have, for the local Atlanta people, if you just are leaving here and heading over there, you can do that and the bar will be open. So we look forward to having everybody join us tonight.
Cool, I'm mic'd up right now,
so
I can pass this around. Yeah. How's everyone doing out there? You made it through day 1 of Resonate. I'm Dan Crittenden. I'm actually the product manager on Ignite. I've been at Stellar Labs for a little over a year. I've been in Athens, Georgia for about 6 years. Just started saying y'all about last year. I felt like it was my time. Like I'm able to say y'all. Recommend it. It's a good way to save time because instead of saying you all, you can just say y'all. It's one syllable. Highly recommended. We of course have our panel up here. Every one of you actually talked today. Enjoyed all the presentations. Just going to rattle through it one more time. The names here. So of course. Bryant Garvin, who graced us with his presence 2 times. I know. Incredible. Liz LaVallee, of course. CEO of, Director of Online Marketing and Development at Vermont Teddy Bear. Colleen Taylor, COO of Smart Marketer. And then PPC Ed, everyone knows that. I mean, I've had people come up to me who don't work for the company and said, I've seen PPC Ed on the internet. So he's very popular, of course. Bret Darby is another one. We've done webinars together, so your face is out there on the internet too. So keep it under locks. And then of course, Peter Kearns, friend of Stellar Labs. So I wanted to kick this panel off by, I'm going to ask, it's not really a softball question, but I want to get things running smoothly. I want a good, clean panel. No aggression, no fights. This isn't a CNN or Fox News segment, so we can have a little fun here. So I'm going to go around and ask a question. I'd like everyone to, throw an answer at it. We don't have to talk too long, but what excites you the most about advertising in 2019 from your particular position? And Brian, why don't you go ahead and start us off here?
Video? Just kidding.
I think that would make sense based on what you presented. Yeah.
Honestly, the thing that excites me is it's constantly changing. So that means even in like established industries or established channels like search or Amazon or things like that, there's opportunities for newcomers to leverage the changes that are happening because a lot of the old guard just doesn't. So.
Good answer. How about you, Liz?
Yes, I was going to say something similar, actually, especially within the Amazon space. I'm excited about. It seems like every month, every week, they're releasing new targeting capabilities, new features, new reporting that is making it more complex and more like, oh my gosh, now I have to layer in ASIN targeting, or now I have brand analytics dashboards. But I'm excited to be getting more and more data and more things to test so that we can be more granular and hopefully improve our returns.
Good answer. How about you, Colleen?
Start with the same thing, and that things are always changing, but for a different reason for me. Obviously, I'm more on the operations side, and one of the things that Smart Marketer does as a company is we provide training, so it's kind of just like constant fodder to keep our customers, in the know. What's new? Sometimes it's hard to, when you're a business owner, you kind of maybe feel alone sometimes and trying to have to figure these things out. And one of the things that we do with Smart Marketer is kind of collect that information and provide it to our customers as trainings.
So I think really mine is the increase of advertising, not just on Amazon, but kind of everywhere. It's becoming more and more apparent in your everyday life. And especially on Amazon, it's becoming more and more competitive, which shows the increase of people actually doing advertising correctly and kicking out, weaker competition, hate to say it. But I think it's really cool because I've seen even more and more clients that we have that come to us, they're actually doing advertising. They just need some tweaks as opposed to people that are coming to us not advertising at all. So more and more people are getting advantage, of the market share and trying to get the best placement possible.
Thank you. Yeah, like they've all mentioned, we're kind of in the golden age of Amazon advertising. There's a lot of new capabilities and a lot of new functionality that's being released. And I'm fortunate enough to be on the cutting edge of that and be able to experiment with these tools and hopefully, provide some insights to you guys and, see what actually works and what's just a gimmick that Amazon's releasing.
I'm last, so I have to follow all of you guys.
That's a tough guard to follow.
That's okay. I think the thing that is exciting for me with the advertising is that new products, new brands have the ability to compete with legacy. So these tools are getting better, and you're not up against these. While you are up against massive budgets, and you are up against people and brands who may have better skill set, you can learn it. And if you're a new product, if you're a new brand, you have the ability to influence those algorithms and the organic search. And so your product can get discovered. And I remember when Amazon launched sponsored products, it was like, one of the best things about Amazon is we have millions of products. And it was this little promotional videos. And then it said, one of the worst things about Amazon is we have millions of products. So how do you get discovered? And so they're doubling down on this. They're continuing to double down on it and continuing to refine the tools, the data sets. So it does. If you, at the core, create a good product, you have the ability to get it in front of consumers now and resonate. Resonate, you like that?
Nice.
And
Back to the beginning.
have the ability to influence organic and then create a sustainable long-term business through it. That's what excites me the most.
Yeah, all across the board. Thank you. So Liz, I read a study by Third Door Media that said that 80% of Amazon advertisers plan to increase their budgets in 2019. What should advertisers be doing to ensure success in this highly competitive market? What are like the top things that you're eyeballing right now as things get more and more competitive?
Oh,
I can do that too. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
First was
I
last.
figured
I had you
two in a
both
row.
on that. So yeah.
What?
We're going to have the same answer.
Well, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I just basically Amazon's getting highly competitive. We all know that. The research indicates that 80% of Amazon advertisers plan to increase their budget this year.
Yeah.
We're already halfway through the year. What are you saying? What do you recommend in response to that high competition?
Yeah, that's a tough thing. I mean, without having the data, you guys getting that from my previous question or my presentation this morning? It's really challenging. It's hard to answer that without really knowing what's going on in the business. So just saying like, I'm going to do this, it's like saying I'm going to go paint something and you have no idea what it is. So it's really hard for me to give that kind of answer. I think, the first thing is if you're going to increase your budget, you need to understand the data around your business so you know where you're putting that money. Is it retargeting? Are you underserving in sponsored products, which is the majority of ads that are served on Amazon? Should you be going and buying and investing in videos? Because, we have a brand that had a video go viral. And we were like, why didn't you tell us you were doing this? Because we didn't have the inventory to support the 400% increase in traffic that was happening hour by hour that the video was going viral. So, it's that sort of stuff. So I'm not trying to dodge the answer, but it's really hard to give an answer without having the data around it. But if you're going to spend more money, figure out why and where based on your data.
That's a great answer. Brett's chomping at the bit though. He wants to say something.
I was just going to say, pay attention to your finances. If your top line's growing, maybe that justifies the increase, but pay attention to your bottom line, your take home at the end of the day.
Great answer, yeah.
And I concur. Sorry, guys. But definitely looking at that and looking at growth over time, not just at a 30-day window or 60 days. Go back as far as you can and see changes over time. One of the benefits of Ignite, not a product placement, sorry, but you can see data a lot further back. So we can look at client data from a year ago just for PPC. So that helps to kind of see where that trend is going so you can get a better educated decision on what you should do with your budgets and see what's going on around you. So look at the data once again.
Thank you, yeah. Well, in that same study, they polled a bunch of people and they found out, they asked, what are your top challenges with Amazon advertising? And three of these items are inadequate reporting, choosing optimization tactics, and how to interpret the data and understand the performance. And I think those are common issues across all advertising platforms, not just Amazon. So what methods and or resources do you use to address these challenges? And I'm going to start with Bryant, because I think that this applies to probably a lot of the areas that you have experience in.
Yeah, so again, for me, like understanding the attribution in the platform is the biggest thing. If you know that you're investing in non-branded or conquesting or whatever it is, right? you also know that most people are not converting on that first time, right? Not a single person in the room raised their hand and said they had a 100% conversion rate. Okay, so people are coming to your pages, continuing to do research. If we look back at, what John shared earlier today, the number of touch points, the length of time between somebody actually doing something, you've got to really start looking at your business in a longer period of scope and not just focusing on, you know what, I decided to invest $1,000 more this month in non-branded, but I only saw like $2,000 in increased sales, right? You've got to start looking at some of that time lag, that time delay. And that also goes back to building a good brand, right? Like the more you focus on top of funnel branding stuff, the less you're going to be able to like really track it all really well. But if you understand that, you'll actually be able to start seeing your brand search stuff go up. One of the coolest metrics that I think that Amazon's actually added is on sponsored brands, being able to see the tracked new to brand sales and new to brand revenue. Like that should be where most businesses that want to grow should be focusing on, is new to your brand. That's how you grow. That's how you scale. Yeah, repeat business, introducing new products to people, but it's that in order to scale, you have to get new people in to your brand and using your products.
Wow, that's great.
Sorry.
I got a couple of eyes looking at me. Does anybody else have any comments before we move on to the next one? You can't really beat that, right? Had to show everyone up twice today and then give some good answers
That was
too.
not the intention.
Yeah. So what tools or resources do Amazon brands have to gather demographic data on their customers, and what can brands do with this data or information on Amazon?
So,
yeah, external resources, doesn't have to be within
external
Amazon.
resources?
Sure, yeah.
Well,
I mean, Facebook demographic data comes to mind. As other social platforms where you can gather information on who's clicking on the ads.
yeah.
And using that to feed back into Amazon in the feedback loop.
Okay, I'll throw something out really quick.
Sure, yeah.
Sorry, I'm not trying to run this.
No, we didn't get these questions in advance. They're all getting these it's just frame of consciousness right now. So, yeah.
So two things. Obviously, as a seller, you've got access to a lot of the consumer data. You cannot use it to email them, mail them, retarget them, any of those things. But there's nothing that says that you can't upload it into a platform like that, like Facebook, and just see what the audience demographics there are, right? The other thing is within Amazon itself, it's another reason to leverage DSP, is as you're running those ads, you see all the places that all of the audiences you're targeting. So if you're remarketing to current customers as an example, right? That's one of the audiences that shows in there, but in the reporting, it'll actually pull out all of the other audiences that they overlap into on Amazon. So you can see like maybe they're in 50 plus active and living lifestyle, or in a keto one, or whatever it is. And so like one of my favorite one was Harry Potter fans. That one showed up for a lot of,
Incredible.
but like you can start getting some of that demographic data out of that by leveraging DSP that you can't get anywhere else.
Great. All right, so last sort of thing we'll do in Amazon advertising. I read that 2/3 of Amazon advertisers plan to use tools to automate their optimization workflows and other workflows in 2019. What role, if any, does automation play in any of your workflows, whether on Amazon or off Amazon? And do you have any suggestions for our audience on how to leverage these tools?
We're actually really wary of a lot of the auto tools, and I think part of the challenge for us is because we are so seasonal that we've found a lot of the tools are looking at recent data, like the last 30 days or the last 60 days, where for us, they really need to be looking year over year.
Very
so
seasonal,
that might be a unique kind of
Yeah.
challenge to our business. But if you are a seasonal business, that might also apply to you where, a product that didn't sell anything in the last 30 days on November 1st is going to be our best seller in 2 weeks. So that makes it challenging. We have to do a lot of things manually because of the lack of that kind of year over year look back.
It's a great perspective.
Yeah, we do a lot manually, very wary of some tools for similar reasons. Also just the machine learning doesn't necessarily interpret what we are seeing in the ways. So we have some for certain aspects of it, but then others we're still doing a lot manually.
Yeah, I think it's about building a successful process for yourself. Figure out what tools can actually complement the person doing the job. If the tool's too complex, it's not really a tool. It's not actually saving you any time. So test them. I mean, use the free trials for any of these whenever you can get them. Make sure it's actually something that you see yourself using, and then build a process around it. I mean, it's the same as anything else in life. To be successful at it, you just got to apply yourself and make sure you work it into your routine.
Cool. So I've been asking a lot of questions. I do that quite often. Are there any questions out in the audience that we want to? Okay, perfect. I see a hand raised. I'll take. Thank you very much. Yeah. Hand still up. I like that. How you doing?
Thank you. Great job today. One of the biggest questions I face and for the last several years is creating a bunch of organic websites to sell the individual products, having a very large advertising budget with Google, sending customers over to those websites. And then the problem is after that, when we started adding Amazon sales, we had split links out. We could either send the conversion into our own organic system of our own sales inside where we fulfill it, or we can send it out to Amazon, a very specific product listing on Amazon. The problem is, after spending a lot of money, we finally gave up the program because we didn't know how much of the sales actually went to Amazon. We cannot track sales from this, the top of the funnel approach to what actually occurred on Amazon. Any idea? You mentioned something, Brian. You mentioned something about these pixels. Any idea how to figure out what your Amazon sales are in relation to the top of the funnel?
So I think you actually mentioned the storefronts. So like you can drive off Amazon traffic to the storefronts with unique links and get a little bit of data around that. Obviously, it's not driving them specifically to the product detail page. That's where you have to have your storefronts built out really well. But to be completely blunt, I'm the type of guy that doesn't give a damn about tracking except for directionally. So I use a lot of the tracking in platform to help me make decisions around which ads or which products and which keywords and audiences are performing better than which ads and which keywords and which audiences, right? From that perspective, I didn't care at Purple as an example or with the brands that I helped grow. If I could track directly my Amazon sales, all I cared about was how much money I was putting out in advertising, no matter where you're driving that or what it's doing, and then what my total overall sales and revenue and profitability looked like from that point. If you can't track it, so if you owned a retail store, right, and you ran advertising, and one day you decided to spend $5 and 5 people came through the doors, the next day you spent 10 and 20 people came through the doors, would you care if you couldn't track it back to that ad spend directly, right? You care about the sales at the end of the day, not necessarily how you got the sales. And so many digital marketers are so focused on how they got the sale that sometimes they end up killing the revenue that's coming through the door because they want to be able to track everything. So if I were you, I would go back through, I would look at the data, I would actually look at how much I was spending, how much money was being purchased on my website versus Amazon. I'd actually also test, honestly, if you've got a good product and you're building a brand, not actually directing them from your website to Amazon, because if they want to go to Amazon, they're going to go to Amazon and search anyways, right? And I know part of why you were doing it was to try and track that, but it doesn't matter at the end of the day, to be completely blunt. If your revenues are going up and to the right and you don't know 100% how it's happening, but you kind of directionally have some ideas, that's all that really matters, right? Turn off the advertising. Has your revenue gone down? Has your revenue gone down since you turned off it? Huh? Yep. Oh, absolutely. But if you've lost, so if you turn off your advertising a month ago, you're going to start seeing like your revenue start to go down even with repeat business because you're not bringing new customers into the funnel. So that's one of the things, like honestly, turning off stuff is one of my favorite things to do when I'm tracking things. Turn it off and see what happens, right? Like the worst that happens is you turn it back on a week or a month from now, right? Yeah, you may have lost a little bit of momentum, but you should be able to get a really good view into what's happening. If you look at the search trend charts for Purple Mattress, there's a bunch of peaks and valleys along the way there. Every peak corresponds with either some seasonal thing like Black Friday, which we also had increased ad spend against, right, to capture that demand, or we pulled back on ad spend because of operations issues or cash flow issues or whatever it is. And so there's definite ways for you to see what the advertising impact is on your business.
Yeah, one other thing I'd add to that, if you don't have the fulfillment network yourself to supply the goods to the consumer and you're reliant on FBA to get it to them, you can set up an affiliate storefront and you can at least get a glimpse into where that traffic is going and what they're purchasing. I ran 3 different affiliate stores for 3 different brands. We chose to drive traffic to Amazon because we didn't want to fulfill it ourselves. We did the CBA. We understood that it was not beneficial for us to actually fulfill it. We didn't have great rates at the time. Fortunately, as the years go on, you get better and you build out that network, and then you're able to do it yourself more efficiently than Amazon can.
I definitely completely agree, because having lived through that of feeling the need to be able to track everything, that in our company's history we definitely turned things off because we couldn't track them, which can be really dangerous. So I think the point of just trying to measure things directionally is a really good one. The only thing I wanted to add was there is actually a beta program that Amazon's offering right now that's called the Amazon Attribution Beta. I'm not sure if it's currently open and taking new sellers, but there is a website. I can find it for you later. I can't remember if it's Amazon attribution.amazon.com or something like that. I'm sure I can dig it up on my phone. But it is actually giving pixels for you to install in your Google account so that you can track Amazon revenue from your Google ad spend.
Thank you. I see a gentleman in the back there.
Do any of you have experience with Amazon Live and could talk about current opportunities for us with Amazon Live? And do you see it going the way of HSN or QVC? Is that where they want it to be?
So we've done, at Vermont Teddy Bear, we have tested Amazon Live, and it's an app that you download on your phone called Brand Studio, and you go and you film it on, go live on your phone, and it's free. You have to be brand registered, and it streams on Amazon.com/live, and it also streams on your product detail pages, kind of in the section close to, I think, where the video shorts are, and down there where there's that strip of sponsored product ads and things like that. So for us, we streamed on, I think, February 12th, which is one of our, 2 days before Valentine's Day, one of our big times of year. The app gives you analytics on your video that went live, and what we saw is we were told that we had one of the most viewed ones. We had 15,000 views or something like that. But for me, I'm not sure if it's just because there were a lot of people on our product pages, if it really drove anything incremental for us. It was one of our biggest days of the year. There were lots of people on our product pages at that time. It also gave you how long they watched the video, and it was pretty short. We went live for 20 minutes. It's kind of like a Facebook Live. And I think the average view time was less than a minute or something like that. So it was hard to tell, really track. Again, hard to track exactly, what it did for us, but the experience was really slick. It was easy to do. I think, again, it's just another one of those opportunities to keep on testing and to stay on top of.
Yeah,
If you're interested, you can email me, jeff@sellerlabs.com, and I'll connect you to some people in the live group. So they are actively recruiting.
Yeah. The other thing with that really quick is there's not an easy way to amplify it right now. So it's just kind of happening, and if it happens, you might
It's like the early days of Facebook Live, right? Where
Exactly.
you hadn't figured out the whole algorithm. So some of the things we've seen testing on Amazon that are interesting is, it was selling us a while ago. I haven't seen it for a bit, but on your page, you used to be able to have a follow me button for your brand that would eventually get it to the point where you would basically build up an audience that's following you, like Facebook, that the live videos would start to go to. So I think it's early, and it'll keep evolving.
Once they add some advertising to it, but going back, I've had a lot of people come up and ask me, well, I don't have a lot of budget for video. One of the cool things about the tool is it's done on your iOS device in the app, and it saves the video afterwards. So you can put that up on your pages, or you can actually post that to your site or other things like that. So it might be a really easy, effective way for you guys to do some product demonstrations that you can then turn into some ads.
One other thing that we did, because we were trying to get the most bang for our buck, is we actually had two phones, and one of them was streaming it to Facebook, and one of them was streaming it to Amazon, because we were like, oh, we might as well do both at once. So you can do stuff like that too.
Did you attempt to send any traffic to Amazon, or was it just testing it out organically to see who got there?
It was just testing out organically. They haven't.
Okay.
I think right now they are giving a certain amount of like free impressions on similar product pages or something like that. But right now, you can't really like run your own advertising to promote the video. But I think that's all going to come. Like Jeff said, they're actively working on the program and trying to recruit people to test it. And I think whenever you can get in early on something at Amazon, especially something that's right now free, and you know, I remember when lightning deals were free and other things, they end up then of course charging you for. It's like, try it now while it's free, get some data, and then you know you can be their test case and form another relationship with somebody at Amazon.
We got another question, right? Oh, here you got the mic already. Look at that, Jeff. Thank you, sir.
Efficient. Question on product launches. I've been doing a lot of split testing between just running on Facebook alone, PPC and Facebook, and just PPC, and just being real aggressive with the keywords. What are your guys' feelings on what's the most effective way, because you're in that honeymoon period, to try to rank yourself organically as much as possible out of the gate?
Give all your products away for $0, ask for reviews. No, seriously, don't.
So, I mean, something with that is we were kind of studying what Amazon says to do, because that's always right. It's not always right. One thing they do always recommend, which is something that we even look at with our clients, is you have to have at least 5 reviews, of course, before you really do a lot of drive to that, a lot of traffic being pushed. I'm not saying you can't run ads on a product that doesn't have any reviews, but if you do so, know what you're going to get out of it. Because especially, like, just think about yourself. Like, are you likely to buy a product that has no reviews and no history on Amazon yet? It's a very low chance. So that's why it is great whenever you're doing a product launch to get some traffic to it first, whether it's even, you know, driving traffic from Facebook or doing things like that, to still have an established listing. Double down on your listing, make sure it is perfect, both the back end, the keywords and the bullet points, the title, the images, everything you can do, make sure it's set. I think actually you were talking about that earlier, like with the listing itself, make sure it's set, and get reviews, because reviews are going to lead to a higher, you know, conversion rate that'll actually make your ads worth their money. So like we do tell people to do some type of ads when they are getting it off the ground, but not to really push as hard until they have an established listing, because it doesn't really seem worth their while as much. So get some type of establishment before you really get aggressive with that advertisement.
And that goes back to if you're launching a new product or it's part of your brand and it's just a new product within your brand, because then you can leverage people that have already purchased from your brand, run it as a sponsored brand ad, right? Like, because then they're not as wary of buying something from you if they know you produce good quality products, right? So I think that's a big part of it as well. Leveraging people that already know you if you built a brand, which is also why I think it's important to build a brand.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're building, there's two things. If you're launching a new ASIN under an existing brand, you're going to have a lot faster traction around that. One of the things that I see that happens the most is that brands fail to do their homework before they launch a product. And so they come up with this product and their title doesn't, you know, like now you should be launching products based on title that's going to search. And you want to look at what your competition is. And you know, we look at brands and existing products and understanding, you know, what is the price range that we're going to need to be competitive in? What is the profitability? What's the long term? You know, where are we seeing it? Launching it organically, letting it sit for a couple of months, weeks to see how it's going before we start really getting into it, before we start driving it. But it also comes down to, like, if you make a shitty product, nothing you can do will make it be a viable product for long term. And so that's the biggest thing that I see, and where people are like, I want to launch a new product and this, and I've got this idea, and like, well, that's got a lot of holes in your strategy. And so that's the thing where I think I see the most shortcuts happen, and that is where you're going to have the biggest problems. And nothing that we talk about here will solve that if the product doesn't resonate with the consumer, if it isn't a good product.
Okay, who else has questions? Who else has questions? I know you do. That's why I came over here. Okay, awesome. I just wanted to know where I need to go next. Okay, I got a couple of you in my mind now. All right.
Thanks. So Jeff made a joke about it a little bit, but I'm genuinely curious. It's a launch strategy that Viral Launch, I think, popularized, which is set your price low and then step it up as you launch a product. I'm curious your experience with that, and then moreover, your experience with just testing price elasticities and how much you've been able to like swing demand by playing with price based on, seasonal trends and stuff like that. Good question.
Yeah, I mean, first with price elasticity, pricing is an executive decision at the end of the day. Hopefully, if it's a product launch, you've thought it through and you have an understanding of where your break even is, where your profitability is, and where your comfortable margin is, and you're going to work towards that. I think there's different strategies for every different product group. What works for supplements might not work for home goods, and it might not work the same for apparel. So I think it really is highly dependent upon the actual case that you're talking about. Same thing with price elasticity. You can look up the formula, you can test it, but it really depends upon the level of competition on Amazon, the amount of search, and a number of other variables. So it's pretty tough to pinpoint just one.
Yeah, it's a tough thing. I mean, there are those strategies where people are like, oh, I'm going to launch it. It's a $30 product. I'm going to launch it for $10, and I'm going to slowly, gradually raise the price over time. I don't know. I mean, you're looking for something that's long-term, and Bryant talked about Amazon wants to surface products that customers are engaging with and buying, and so you've got to get the conversion. And I think messing with the price is not necessarily a long-term strategy, and that I think is a big challenge. I would be more inclined to use promos and coupons and things to try to drive that. Retarget a coupon back to a consumer who abandoned the detail page, and hold that price, because it also, it comes back to what I talked about this morning, the customer journey. So if you're launching a product on your website and it's $30, and then they go to Amazon and it's $10, that's kind of raising some red flags there. Is it counterfeit? Is it fake? Is it something wrong with it? And so you want that consumer journey to be the same across the board. So I understand that you've got to trigger, how to finagle the algorithms to get that search. So I don't really like the pricing aspect of it. And I've seen the flip side happen where you get locked in, you think you're going to sell this product for $30, and then you started at 10, and then you start to bump it up, and your BSR it just starts to tank, man. And it's because your conversion starts to drop, and it can take months for that to recover. So
yeah, I like Casey. I'm hiding down here on the floor now. I like Casey from Viral Launch. I think he's a really good guy. I think he does a lot of shock marketing. And I'll say it, this is on video. I'll share it with him, because I've said it to him. I think that what you have to think about when you hear gurus speak is, are they telling you what's best for their story, or are they telling you what's best for your brand? And so I'm not arguing that strategy didn't work for him, because it very well could have, but does that strategy now work for everybody? He also told everybody when product ad targeting came out that you should lower your bids to 25 cents and use 900% product ad targeting, because he did it on one campaign and it worked. But that doesn't mean everybody in the room should just jump and do that. And what we have to deal with, John from our customer success team and these guys from managed services, is when you guys call up and go, yeah, but I watched a video and they said that this is what I should do. And so it's like kind of buyer beware. And I guess that's, that's me too, right? I speak from stage and tell you guys strategies of how to do things, but understand that when we're giving examples, and we can do case studies and show you how we've done, great for people with a particular strategy, but that was their strategy that worked with their business and their plan. And that's what's different about you guys. And that's what's different about this conference, is that the strategy is about your strategy, not trying to mimic somebody else's. So just take that all into mind when you're thinking of that.
Yeah, and I think just touching on that, if you're willing to lose money and you're going to sell a $30 product and you're going to sell it for the first 8 months at $10, so you've got got room to move, right? You're going to lose money. I wouldn't do that. I would engage with like the early reviewer program. I would do giveaways. I would pay for the insights that Amazon runs through Seller Central, so you can get customer insight as to what's going to make them connect with the product sooner. So I feel like there's better way to spend that money that can create long-term effects and can influence the organic algorithms where there's consumers who are actually engaging with it and buying with it, as opposed to just this kind of knee-jerk reaction like, oh, it's $10, I think I'll buy it.
I think that's also a big difference between Amazon-only businesses and Amazon and direct-to-consumer businesses, where you have both, because somebody that has a direct-to-consumer business and those audiences and those consumers that they've got, you can leverage those a lot different than somebody that's 100% reliant upon Amazon. Right? Like if you wanted to launch a new product and you were okay with doing some discounting to try and get some traction, you could reach out to all of your 5-star review customers, right? On your direct to consumer site, shoot them an email, give them a call, whatever, right? And say, hey, because you're an awesome customer, here's a discount code. And just because you're awesome, we're launching this new product and we wanted you to be the first one to get it, right? That's a very different thing. And it's something that's only available to you if you have customers that you can leverage.
Okay, we're gonna have another question over here.
I'm gonna flip the talk from product launch back to advertising. So sorry, we can go back to that because I do want to learn about that too. But question on the video and search beta under DSP, and I believe it's under managed services. I don't think this is on the self-serve DSP. Have you guys used it? Has it worked? What's your thoughts on that?
So I have used it. I was one of the early alpha testers when I was at Purple. It is on the managed services side right now. There are minimums. I think it's like $10,000 or $15,000 that you have to put towards it. It was limited to just iOS app search originally. I know they're working on getting it out to Android as well as the mobile experience, but it was a really small group of people that was actually even able to see the ads initially.
Do you think that some of it is challenging when we talk about Amazon stores or Amazon Live and ESPN search? Is that Amazon's rolling all of these things out to us, but as consumers, we're not getting there yet. We're not seeing the stores, we're not navigating. So we're doing these things as tests of maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but the customer's not getting there yet. Whereas in maybe 12 months from now, you can see with Amazon stores, the customer's starting to pick up on how to shop and how to use that. And I feel like maybe this search and video may be similar.
I absolutely agree.
You had to do that to me at like 5 o'clock at the end of the day after I left. That was a great comment, but it wasn't on the microphone for the video. But basically the question was, this is for the video's sake, so you guys remember later what they're answering. Basically the question was, is Amazon moving faster than consumers are consuming what they're creating? Right, that's the basic question.
And I agree they are, and I agree that there's a limited use case, but like the live streaming of video, right? Like getting in early and understanding it is going to give you a leg up when it is rolled out to mass adoption, both for advertisers and sellers and vendors and stuff, as well as when the general consumer actually starts to adopt it. Some of this stuff may never go anywhere, right? But some of it may. And if you can get in early and it's not really cost prohibitive, right? Like a lot of these things are free when they first launch, right? Like if you can get in on an alpha or a beta with Amazon, a lot of times it's free to start with. You can get some learnings, plus maybe some exposure and maybe some sales along the way, and maybe get a cool case study, which is always nice, but more than anything, it's just testing so that you can have an edge down the road.
Yeah, and I'd add to that Amazon is extremely Darwinian. All their processes, everything they build internally, it's survival of the fittest. You'll see that with any of their programs that they roll out and then close down 2 years later. They're trying to get proof of concept. They're trying to test it out. As long as it's not an extremely large burden on your guys' operations to try it, I'd say do it.
So let's ask Liz that question, because we talked a little about squirrel, right, and staying focused and having strategy, and you guys do a lot. So how do you evaluate a new opportunity like live or video search, and how do you determine whether you're going to spend the effort to test it?
Well, I think we kind of just go after everything.
So
Like
your
we should-
general attitude is you want to be part of those early betas,
Jump
and so
in.
you make that a priority.
Yeah, so in my presentation today, I kind of listed out, the tactics that we used in our Easter campaign, and really our strategy is like how many tools can we have in our arsenal for campaigns like that? Because we've found that the more levers you can pull all at once, the more successful you'll be. So as there are definitely some, as long as the cost to entry in terms of mind share and time, I think Amazon Live was out for months before we actually got around to I had to convince somebody to go in front of the camera. We needed to set aside like an hour. Like it took people's time in the office, but it wasn't too much of an ask. So as long as it's not too much of an ask, we're willing to try it, because you don't know what's gonna stick until you actually throw it up against the wall. And back to attribution, a lot of these things aren't necessarily you have to be comfortable knowing you're not necessarily gonna really exactly know, like I got 100 incremental sales from trying this. A lot of it's hard to tease apart, but back to what we were kind of saying earlier, directionally, as long as things are rising and things are doing well, you're not hurting anything by trying these new things.
My question is, what do you think is the best way to leverage the early reviewer program?
We enroll every single new ASIN into the early reviewer program. I just kind of going back, like it's part of our checklist before we go live with a product, because I would definitely pay $60 for 5 reviews because it's so hard before you get a review. I mean, no one wants to be the one to buy a product that says, be the first to review this product. And we see as soon as we get a few reviews, just a handful of reviews, our ACoS goes down, our conversion rate goes up. So there's very few compliant things that you can do to get reviews. So if it's compliant and it can lead to more reviews, I would say definitely enroll every single new product.
Is there a mic over there?
Yeah.
I'll go for it, yeah.
This isn't really a question, but there's been a lot of talk about Amazon Live. I actually was up at Amazon last week with them doing an Amazon Live, and I didn't really see the value in it. I had done a couple, I got good impressions, but didn't see a huge sales lift, and I didn't really see, I felt like I would do the live and then it would just get pushed under by all the other live videos. But some strategies that you can do to help make it be worth your time is, instead of just filming it on your iPhone, if you use an external video camera, you can encode it and have it loop, and then set up scheduled live so that it'll play the whole day long or for 8 hours. You just have to have somebody available to chat during that time. But while it's live, Amazon will actively push people to your video that have shown interest in your product category. And as soon as it ends, they're not going to push anything to it. So if you can do like a 20, 30-minute video, have it loop for 8 hours, you can get tons of traffic pushed to your listings, tons of traffic pushed to your video on Amazon Live the whole day long.
I bet Liz is going to try that by next week at the latest.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so you basically build your own QVC channel, right? So maybe you want to actually produce like 4 half-hour segments and loop them in 2-hour increments. Yeah.
You can also pay Amazon, because they have like a QVC channel, and you can get in touch with the live team and pay them, and they will demonstrate your products on their channel that they promote on Amazon Live.
Great. Any other questions before we do a wrap-up question with great. All right, we'll do these last 2, and then we'll wrap up with a final question, Dan?
Sure, yeah.
Actually had a follow-up on video and search. They did release it recently to Android. I think it's just a slight inventory. My question actually was for Liz. When you approached the executive portion of Vermont Teddy Bear, asking to kind of reposition the company in the sense of a strategic value towards Amazon, obviously you said that you had some conflicting issues with that and you lost some people. What was some of the data or future market assumptions you provided to kind of ease that transition, even though obviously there was fallout with it?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest hurdle that we needed to get over is people really thought that Amazon wasn't going to drive any incrementality. They really couldn't get over the fact that we do so much offline marketing. It's a huge expense for us. It's our company's biggest expense is our advertising, and the concern was that we were just going to be siphoning off 20% of that volume over to Amazon, paying them a referral fee, losing the customer, not getting an email address, and not being able to drive repeat purchases. So in terms of what kind of data we could show them, it was what they needed to be convinced of is that there was an incremental opportunity. So showing them things like one of our first years on Amazon, January was actually a bigger month for us than February, which was unheard of. Like, February, that was before we were doing really a lot of advertising. That was just like natural, organic sales. So being able to show data points like that, being able to show that we had spikes on Amazon even when we weren't running advertising, and being able to show that there is search volume all year long, and that it could solve some of our seasonality, and showing that it's not just going to cannibalize our other channels.
Thank you. That was a really good question. Did you guys know there's plugs in the chairs? I didn't know that. Everyone's looking right now.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I was like, man, it's kind of weird there's no plugs in here. And I just realized there's plugs in every chair.
Only the first 3 rows. Oh, really? Yeah, row 4, they stop.
Really? Oh, so you got to... The cheap seats don't... Well, you guys are going to all be fighting for the first 3 or 4 rows. The first 3 or 4 rows have... That's really weird. Eric, we need to... It was designed that way. That's to get you closer to the teacher.
Can't hide from the teacher. I think I'm probably just showing my ignorance here, but I hear all this terminology and talk about branding and so forth. Are you talking of, and this is general, are you talking about a brand that is registered with the USPTO, that your product label has a little R with a circle around it, and you have this certification from Amazon that you submitted for their central branding registry or Vendor Central? Or are these advertising venues that we've been discussing the last few minutes, are they available to those who don't have the little trademark symbol on your products and are just Seller Central? So, I mean, in other words, to state it a different way, what advertising venues other than sponsored search are available to those sellers who are just on Seller Central that don't have a U.S. Patent Trade Office trademark?
I'll ask it in a very Amazonian way.
Okay.
Amazon has brand registry, right? Because you use the trademark to get into brand registry. And they have some services where brand registry is the bar for participation. That's the term that they use, right? So if you guys know, like, which of these are part of that, which of these are not. So what do you need?
Really just sponsored products. If you don't have a brand, if you're just a reseller, distributor, something like that, you're basically focused on sponsored products. Very tactical, low funnel approach. There's definitely other opportunities that you could try and pursue, but that's probably going to be best for you there.
Most of it's limited to brand registry. Like sponsored brands, product display ads, video and search beta, the live streams, all of those things you have to have brand registry, which you don't necessarily have to have a patent, you just have to have a trademark, which is very different, right? So like you just have to prove that your name, so one of the brands that I work with is Groove Rings, and their trademark is actually Groove Plus Life. Like that's what they trademarked originally. So their brand registry is actually under Groove Plus Life. So all of their stores, all of their links, everything is Groove Plus Life, even though they sell silicone rings. So.
But to qualify for that, you have to go to the formal process of the U.S. Patent and Trade, the USPTO, to get that little R with a circle around it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, great. Got a closing question that was handed to me by a person who was a little too shy to ask it, but they have really nice handwriting, so I can easily read this. Looking forward into 2020 and beyond, we can go across the board here. How do you see Instagram and social advertising changing the landscape in the future for our environment? And I kind of want to hear from Colleen, because you've been a little quiet, and let's give her a chance to talk here.
I mean, I don't have a super eloquent answer, but I do know that Ezra talks about this all the time, that, these social platforms are going to be where you make a reservation for dinner, where you buy everything, where you get a cab, where you, book a hotel room. So I think, at least for us at Smart Marketer, I know that, Ezra really follows what's going on, and that I feel like that is where we're going to be focusing a lot of our attention and a lot of our, research and resource allocation is to selling through, whether it be Facebook Messenger or whatever platform, we're going to be putting a lot of focus towards that.
That's great, and chatbots are something that I see come up quite a bit. I know this was alluded to in the YouTube presentation that you gave as well, which probably falls under that funnel as well. Does anyone else have anything to add?
I think it's going to be huge. I do a lot of Instagram advertising myself and Facebook advertising, and I love it.
What's your handle that we could follow?
Not available right now. So sorry.
He won't share it with me. It's so annoying.
It's because you're Jeff Cohen. Like, come on, man. But I think it's huge because the integration with people's stores. Like, I've watched a lot of brands that have started with nothing and got a large boost from Instagram advertising, and even just the swipe up feature. You're interacting with an ad that leads right to a page where you can buy that product. Even the larger brands such as Nike and Adidas, they are killing it. And their targeting is incredible. Like, I actually buy things off of Instagram. That's rare. Like, I avoid all other ads, but Instagram is the one where the targeting is down to a T, something I would have bought. And I see that becoming more and more of the case. And even when the ads that I run, I see a better return on the ads that I run on Instagram than I do on Amazon. Of course, I don't sell on Amazon, but it's just, I can see a correlation, I can see the demographic, and I can see everything right there. And I can take that and apply it across the board to other ads on other platforms. So I think it's going to be huge.
I think that there's a lot of stuff being made today. There's a lot of brands that are coming up. And I think, when you look at Amazon, it really fulfills that supply and demand, like I talked about earlier today. And I think the core is, as a brand, you have to be able to connect with consumers in a really, really deep, meaningful way. And Facebook and Instagram, other social media really allows you to make that connection. I follow a couple of brands that have really deep followings on Facebook. These brands create really great products. Their products sell out on their direct-to-consumer websites in seconds, and then will turn around and be sold in these private Facebook groups for 4 or 5 times for what they originally asked for. These consumers, they literally eat, breathe, and sleep these brands, and they've been able to create really great products. The brands haven't connected with them. And so I think that having those tools that are available are really going to be important, because you're going to need to be able to pull those levers to be able to drive that consumer adoption and awareness for the products. And I think video is also a really, really important aspect of it, especially for the younger generations. I mean, we're not talking about millennials, we're talking about the Gen Alphas, like my son who's 7, who just, he just consumes videos. He gets 20 minutes a day, but all he wants to do is watch YouTube Kids. And then he watches all these videos and absorbs it all. And I think that having that connection with them is going to be really vital. And then the last thing, I know I'm kind of tackling all or whatever, piling on, but I think if I were you, I'd pay really close attention to what Nike's doing. Nike is a brand that I think has really figured out what's going on with retail. It's not e-commerce, it's not brick and mortar, it's just digital commerce in a very, it doesn't matter where you are. And I went into a Nike store in Portland, I bought $500 worth of stuff, and I realized I couldn't fit any of it into my suitcase. And so the guy was like, no problem. He said, is this your Nike Plus account? And I said, yeah. And he clicked a couple buttons. He said, it'll be here tomorrow. It'll be at your house tomorrow. And he took the stuff off the sales floor. There wasn't a cash register. We were standing there just in the middle of the floor. He bought it all or purchased it all, and it was everything's there. It's all connected to their app. It's all connected to their training app, their run app. And so you're living a whole lifestyle around this brand that's making things better. And so I think that is really what you need to be paying attention to in terms of long-term things for social and video, in terms of being able to sell and connect with consumers and sell products.
And I agree with you there. I think as digital marketers, because we're sitting in front of computers looking at spreadsheets all day, it's really easy to forget that there's people on the other side of the equation. And the one thing that I think people more and more are craving is actual human connection. And that human connection doesn't actually have to be with a human being, it can be with a brand, right? Like I think of a brand as almost like a personality, a community, a little town that you want to go like hang out in that neighborhood, right? And social is one of those places that you can really build that community or that connection with people to where like the coolest thing ever, and part of why I went to Purple was first couple of weeks seeing people like sharing the videos, but then people would start like knocking on it and like the community would just jump in and like hammer them, right? You know, and so like building up that type of connection isn't something you can do with like a PPC text ad. And so I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is people want that human connection.
One other thing is you look at the daily usage data for those social media, compare it to platforms like eBay and Amazon, Target, Walmart, and it's significantly higher. These people, this is their lives, that they're in there all the time. And so once they've figured out how to get that one-click purchase, you know, the buy box on Instagram and that, and you're able to fulfill that order, you know, within 24 hours and get it to them, that's a game changer.
And they've actually started introducing that in just the last little while. So
I'm just trying to imagine you wearing like a $500 pair of Air Jordans or something. And I'm trying to imagine what's in your basket when you leave a Nike store.
A lot of running shoes.
Yeah. Well, we're over our time now. I want to thank the panelists for not only speaking earlier today, but also taking time to answer questions up here. And also thank all of you for joining us on day one. And am I stealing your thunder? I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
You're great.
Yeah.
You're great.
Go ahead.
No. Thank you, Dan, for hosting. Everybody will be at dinner tonight, so you can ask more questions there. Again, dinner is at 6:30 at Fido's. At 8:30, we'll start trivia night, right? So 6:30, and then we'll cocktail party, then we'll have dinner, then we'll have trivia night, cash prizes. For those that don't want to play, there will be areas there that you can still hang out in and not play trivia. So don't feel like you have to, but we look forward to entertaining you all this evening.